So first, can you just tell me a bit about you and your brother's lives, your twin brother's lives, as well as like your bond prior to 9/11?
Oh, well, my brother and I we're twins, and we're very close because we're twins. So we grew up together. Well, we were born in the Caribbean island of Montserrat. We moved to New York. I think at age 12 or 13. So we grew up together, pretty close. We grew up together. Junior high together, high school. We went to the same college together. We worked at the same place until he got into the fire department. So we were always close. We done stuff together. We shared the same car, and we did a bunch of stuff together. Because as twins, we tend to be close to siblings.
Yeah, for sure. And how did your brother end up becoming a firefighter?
But my dad was a firefighter in New York. For my dad, he actually did 32 years in the fire department, and he encouraged my brother and I to take the test for the fire department. And uh, my brother got called a couple years after taking the test and got into the fire department. They called me a couple years later, which I turned it down because as an aircraft mechanic at you know airlines, so I just choose to stay there instead of getting to the fire department.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And the events of 9/11 were, of course, very difficult for everyone involved. And can you talk about a little bit about your experiences that day?
Oh, well, they started as usual, like everybody else. I I think I was at work. Yeah, I was at work that day when it happened, and I think my mom called me and she told me about what was happening at the Trade Center. Because at the time I was in Houston, Texas, at the time when it happened, and I was at work when my mom told me, so I turned on the TV and it's just to see what it was. And like everybody else that in New York, we thought it was probably one of these small planes or helicopters that go up and down the Hudson every day that ran into the Trade Center. So I never thought anything about it. I looked at it for a couple of minutes and then I went about doing what I was supposed to do. And then I guess a few minutes later, the second airplane hit the Trade Center. And then I realized it was more than just a small plane. And then everybody was saying the country was under attack. And I looked at it for a while. And now thinking about my brother, because he's actually worked in Brooklyn, but she was in Manhattan for a couple. Well, you get moved around to different firehouses, so he was in Manhattan for a little bit, and he was not too far from the World Trade Center. So I thought, well, it was going to be a busy day for them, and I just never thought about it until later that night that he was missing, and I needed to come to New York. So I tried to make my way to New York from Texas. They were in that first tower that got hit, which was the North Tower, and they made it up pretty high. There was actually a video taken by of him and his company in the lobby of the Trade Center. So there's a glimpse of him going upstairs, going to the stairwell. I know uh, my mom has a friend that works at the Trade Center, and she said she saw him going up the stairs. And that's about it. Other than that, there's no other information about what happened.
Yeah, for sure. And after 9/11, how did you cope with the aftermath of the events and how did it shape your career moving forward and your personal life?
Well, I don't know if I coped with it pretty good. It was a tough. It's still tough doing it because it's so. The thing about it is that it's so public. So it's like every year around this time, you relive that moment because it's shown over and over on the TV and so it's. But for me, it was a hard couple years dealing with it. Trying to get some answers. Where was he and then they finally found him a couple months later, and then it took a while for them to release the body. So it was a tough couple months to deal with it after the tragedy, and dynamics of it. Like I said to people before, as a firefighter of color, they were slightly ignored in the media and by the people, because then I don't know if you knew back then in New York there wasn't a lot of African American firefighters in the fire department in the first place. So no, it was hard to. I think there's actually 12 black firefighters that actually got killed on that day, and they're the invisible 12. You know, the family's invisible, and they were invisible in a sense. So it was tough trying to navigate. What I became a firefighter in 2003. Um, I don't know if I was actually, to tell you the truth, I'm not really sure how I got, I got into the fire department. I think it's all a blur. I think it just happened accidentally, and then that's where I ended up. It's not like I was planning to. I ran into a couple guys a year after so normally the International Association of Firefighters have a memorial in Colorado Springs, and I met a few firefighters from Texas, from Houston anyway, and they had we had a conversation, and they were kind of insisting on me just trying out, and I did. Ended up here.
Yeah, for sure. And what's it like being a Black firefighter today, even like after 9/11? Are there any specific experiences that shape being a Black firefighter?
Well, it does. Is it? Well, you do have a sense of pride, because um, it's not the black community don't usually see a lot of African American firefighters, whether here in Texas or anywhere else, because the numbers are small. So when they tend to see us, it's what I work in my firehouse. Majority of us are black, so you sometimes the guys on the fire truck are all black. So when we show up, it tends people don't. Some people are amused by it, and some people are shocked. They think that we stole the truck or something. But it's a sense of pride of being African American. And then, there's kids, and then you have young kids. I know growing up in New York, the only African American person that I knew was my dad and probably one or two other people that's there. But it was a rarity to see a lot of black firefighters growing up. So now I think the fire service has slightly changing because
Mhm.
I've seen more African Americans here in Houston, also in New York. So I think it goes in cycle. You have like a good amount of African Americans in, and numbers might change, but it's not great enough to affect great change.
For sure, thank you. And of course, in recent years, there's been more talk about the health impacts faced by 9/11 first responders and how 9/11 has had like long-lasting impacts on their health. Do you know any fellow first responders or black first responders who have faced similar health concerns, or if it's affected your even psychological own well-being?
I have a friend of mine and his brother. He's a twin brother too, and I met him after 9/11. His twin brother was also, and he's a firefighter too, and they're twins, they're identical twins like we are, brother and I are, and were, and he lost his twin brother too on 9/11. So I think like everyone else, people are affected. I know health wise, I don't know of any African American firefighter uh, who's affected by it. I just know a couple guys in my brother's firehouse who were affected by it, cancer after 9/11 and passed away. But I know I think there's one other guy, two people that I actually know that has some kind of illness from the effects of being at the Trade Center who are African American. The majority of the people that have passed on after 9/11 white, and which is unfortunate. It's just based on the number of firefighters in the fire department who are Caucasian, so they're affected more than we do because our numbers are small.
Sure. And one last question. As you reflect on like your brother's legacy, what do you hope people will remember about the contributions and sacrifices of Black 9/11 first responders, and especially your brother?
Well, I've always hoped that they don't get erased in history when when the focus on everybody else. Their contribution is put on the back burner, which is I still feel that way because then back then they were invisible, and my experience that when my mom and I or my brother and I would show up at events for firefighters that we had to explain who he was. So, and that was not just unique to us; it was unique to the 12 other families. So it's hopefully there's some celebration of their lives and the contribution they've made on that day. So and they're not being pushed aside. And I guess articles like this, we give them, give us some hope that African American firefighters are not invisible and we're not unicorns.